right. Hi, everyone. I am Diogo from the customer success team here at Klaus. Today with me, I have Riley, who's our educational content manager. Hi, Riley. And welcome to our first Keeping Up with Klaus webinar series. Very happy to be here today and do this new format of a webinar. Just to give you a heads up, this is not going to be a product update. This is not going to be a demo, but definitely there are elements of both present in this session today. We want to make sure that you are aware of all the things you can do with our platform. A couple of things were released recently, so we want to show you that as well. And you may notice that certain things that we're going to show today, they are not available in your account. That's related to the plan that your company is in. But the good news is all the things that you don't see in your account, they are available for testing. So don't need to worry. If you are curious after this session, we can grant you access for these extra things as well. So today's agenda, let's have a look. We split the presentation today into 4 parts. We're going to start with the basics, the core of Klaus, the scorecards and the reviews, how to make the best scorecards, how to make a QA process that makes sense. Maybe you are kicking off your process, maybe you are reviewing your process. Both cases are fine. We're going to look at assignments, so a little bit of automation and the ways you can save time with it. Auto QA, which is the next big thing, and it's already part of Klaus, and also the extension. Followed by the dashboard. We want to look at numbers, understand our reports, and do something with these numbers. Coach our agents, and we're going to finish by the CSAT or CES surveys. Before we begin, just another quick heads up. If you have questions, there is a dedicated tab in Livestorm just for questions. Melanie from our support team is live today with us. She's going to help you with all those questions. Maybe we will have time for a few questions in the end to share with everyone, but that depends on how much we're going to spend with the presentation today. So let's see. And in the main tab, the chat where you can see everyone else who's online, Melanie will be sharing some specific links towards the end of the presentation. As usual, the webinar recording will be sent your way after we finish, so you can share that with other people, revisit the topics we covered today, all those things. Enough about me right now. Now the stage is yours, Riley.
Thank you, Diogo. Hello, everybody. So today we're going to start with our scorecards in Klaus. And I've got a few things I wanted to kind of highlight and point out within our scorecards that maybe you're not quite aware of, or it might be a nice addition to how you're managing your scorecards currently. So I'm guessing, with a bit of an assumption here, that many of you have created multiple scorecards for different purposes. For example, maybe a scorecard purely for your chat and email conversations and a separate scorecard to assess your phone call conversations, or perhaps from a different help desk, one for intercom or one for air call, for example. Now, if you're like me, you may have reviewers that have gone ahead and completed their reviews only to realize that they actually selected the wrong scorecard to make the review on. And this can be a pretty annoying thing to happen. So something that is a little bit hidden in Klaus that you may not be aware of is a feature called conditional rating categories that we can use. It's in the settings up here. And what this does is it means that you can actually then choose which categories will be available to grade based on certain values that the conversation has. So this is really ideal for those that have separate scorecards for a different channel or for a different source, or even for a particular CSAT rating, if you're doing some DSAT analysis. So I'm going to quickly show you how to do that. It's as simple as just swapping 2 conditional rating categories. And the first thing you'll see that happens is it now removes the scorecard label that was here for each category. And that's because now there is no static or manual category choices, scorecard choices. It's all down to the way you set up the category itself. So now that we're in the category, we can see as where we set the rules for when do you want this category to appear. So as I mentioned before, we have options between source type, between channel, between CSAT, but even conversation tags that we are retrieving from your help desk. So if you do have a particular scorecard for a particular source or channel or type of conversation, you can set up your categories so they only are visible when that condition is met. So this can really help alleviate the problem of having to select the right or wrong scorecard every time. And we're going to have a quick look at that in action now. I'll update this category. So that was the greeting category here. If I now go to my conversation list and I look at a conversation, I'll see that the greeting category has been removed from my scorecard, and this is because this is not an intercom conversation. If I now head to my intercom conversations, I can see that the greeting category has been moved back because that was the rule I set. So this can be a really useful feature for those that have maybe different scorecards for different channels and sources. And it's definitely worth checking that out, as that can save you quite a lot of time and a lot of headaches around making sure you've got the right scorecard present. I'll switch back for this rest of the session. So another question we get asked quite a lot by customers is, how many categories should I have? And I mean, there is no perfect answer for that. However, we do kind of recommend to keeping things relatively simple. The idea of good QA is being able to deliver consistent and regular feedback to your agents. So if you have a scorecard that is 20 or 30 categories long, A, it means your reviewers are going to take a long time to review it. And B, it can get a bit convoluted and hard to actually know what am I doing right or wrong within a scorecard. So we do generally recommend around 5 to 8 categories to start with. Of course, you can adjust as you go and as your team grows as well. Now, if you do have quite a large number of categories, one thing that can be quite overlooked is our groups feature. So here you can actually add groups for your categories, and you'll see I've created 3 groups here: soft skills, knowledge, and miscellaneous. And this is grouping my categories into these buckets. Now, that's not only useful for keeping your scorecard organized and tidy, but this actually also has an impact on your reporting and dashboards. So if I flick over to my dashboard now, you'll see that when I look at my category scores over time, I have my grouped categories together. This means that at a glance, when I'm just quickly analyzing and checking my team's results, I can easily see and identify where the weak spots are in our team. So from my list here, we can see that knowledge is slightly below 80%, which is kind of our target. And I can click into the group and it shows which of these knowledge categories is to blame. And we can see internal processes is where we need to invest a lot more time training our agents in. So the grouping of the categories just gives you this extra little bit of oversight when you are scanning your dashboard as well. So one thing you may notice from my scorecard here is something you may not have yourself, and that is these little hologram categories. These are our auto QA categories. So it's got our little AI label next to them. And what's really good about the auto QA categories is they will review 100% of your conversations, regardless if your review team has actually been able to get to it or not. So if you do get access to auto QA, what I really, really recommend is to create a separate auto QA scorecard with the auto QA categories and just let that run in the background. You don't need to be manually reviewing or submitting any reviews. However, auto QA will be running in the background for all of your combos. And what it means is it allows you to then filter your main conversation list by these auto QA results. So it's essentially the first step in finding the needle in the haystack and finding the right tickets to review. We're going to have a look at filters a little bit later in the webinar, and I'll show you that in action as well. One final tip on the scorecards here is that some categories can be useful for you as a review team to be weightless, meaning that it won't penalize the agent if it's scored negatively. So in this case, I've got spelling and grammar running across all of my scorecards. And however, the agents are not actually going to be penalized in their IQS score because I've given it a 0 weight. However, it's still useful because it's going to automatically point out and highlight all of the grammar and spelling mistakes in a ticket for the agent. And they can use it as like a training tool or a coaching tool rather than it punishing their overall IQS score. So having a look at weightless categories can also be quite a useful addition to a scorecard. But finally, my favorite part of our scorecards, and I think this is something that if you're not using, you really should look into it, is our root causes. So our root causes allow you to input a predefined reason as to why a category was scored a certain way. We've recently added the option for also neutral ratings, which means you can now add root causes for any rating in any of the scales that you've selected. And the reason why this is useful is I have a category here called internal processes. And obviously, if my agents aren't following my internal processes, the score is going to go down, as we saw in the dashboard earlier. Now, that information is good. I know I need to train my agents on internal processes. However, it doesn't give me that next layer of which process do I need to train them on. And that's where adding these predefined root causes can really help. Now, when we grade the conversation negatively, we can actually input which of the processes were not followed correctly and which ones do we need to make a training on. And this becomes even more useful when we go back to our dashboard again. And you'll see that in our categories dashboard, when we select the internal processes one, I can now see what the root causes are for the low ratings. I can sort it to see which one was the most, and I can see that's actually incorrect troubleshooting. That is the process that we need to train our agents on. And even better, I can expand this and it shows me exactly which agents it was that was failing this category the most. So I know not only which process I need to be training my team on, but actually the individual agents that need the training as well. So that is all for the tips along scorecards. I hope you've learned something new. And if you're not using root causes, please give them a go. They will change your life. That's it for scorecards. We're going to head back to Diogo for a little tip from him. Thank you.
Exactly. Thank you, Riley. Now we're going to have a quick look at the notification settings in Klaus. So now we are in the company level settings, this part over here, and we see a tab called notifications. It's not everyone who has access to this part, but for those of you who have it, nothing matters in Klaus unless people are aware of it, right? So we want to make sure that not just agents know about the reviews when they are submitted, but also in case there are disputes, mentions in comments, replies to threads, all those kinds of things, people then get reminded accordingly. We have two levels of notifications in Klaus, okay? We have those that can go through email, and we also have something else, which is Slack notifications. So starting here with the email notifications, you can get in different cadences the stats of your account and also reminders in case people are not doing the reviews that they need to do. And you can also decide here how frequent you want these notifications. It can go from every 3 hours to daily to monthly, and eventually disable those notifications, something we don't recommend. Pick yours. And then on top of that, we have the Slack notifications. If you are using Slack, I highly recommend it. We use Klaus here at Klaus, and I use it to make sure I am sending my reviews to my colleagues. And then what's going to do is going to create an individual channel for you under your Slack apps, and you get the notifications there. Super easy. It's a place you are already checking during the day anyway, so it's quite helpful. The other tip I want to show, maybe something that you were not aware of yet, is that you can lock and unlock notifications in Klaus. It's something that you see here at the top. If they are locked, that means that the same notifications the admins choose, they will be applied to everyone. So when you go here to your notifications, it's going to show like this. That's good because then you know that everyone is getting it every week or every day, that the system is the same for everyone. If you prefer to give people some freedom, that's also fine, of course. You just change here to unlocked. And then when you go back here, I can then change my notification settings. That's all for notifications. Now back to Riley for some tips on filtering.
Thank you. Yes, so we've now got our scorecards perfected. We've got notifications enabled. Now time to hunt for those tickets to review. And now we don't advise of just doing a random sample, especially because you can be processing thousands of support tickets a week, and just grabbing a little random sample might not bring out the most worthwhile conversations to review. So in that idea, we really recommend making use of the filters that we have in Klaus to kind of help you point yourself in the direction of finding the gold or the needle in the haystack. So our filters, there's a few things I wanted to point out with them. First of all is the Klaus AI filter options that we have available are really powerful and can be really useful. As I mentioned in the scorecard section, we have auto QA categories running in the background and assessing the conversation. So one example could be, I want to find all conversations where the solution was found to be bad by auto QA. So I've got about 280 tickets in my account, and Klaus has now found 25 of them where the solution was deemed poor, which is a very good starting point for me to look for conversations that are worthwhile to review and that will have decent feedback to deliver to my agents and the rest of the team. So using our auto QA as kind of this first step towards narrowing down the selection pool of what tickets to review can be a really easy thing to implement and really powerful way of you making sure you're not wasting your time reviewing cases that shouldn't really need to be reviewed. Another thing that helps with this that you may already know about is our Spotlight filter. Now, our Spotlight filter is basically an AI data model that's running in the background on just your own data. So it's only processing and building this data model on your own data, and therefore it's able to detect some conversations that fall outside of the norm for you. So these are what we call the spotlight conversations. It's shining a spotlight on conversations that aren't so typical for your team. That could be down to how many agents was participating in the chat, how long it took, how many messages were sent back and forth, the sentiment of the customer. So it's a really, really, again, great first step at narrowing down the scope of which tickets to review and helping you find the really important ones to do. Now, one other filter condition that I think can be quite a useful one, particularly for the QA managers around here, is the review viewed filter. This will bring you a list of conversations where the agent has not actually opened and read the feedback. So it can be a good exercise to do maybe once a month, once a fortnight, just to get a list of agents who maybe aren't actually checking and opening their reviews. You can use this filter to find those conversations and find the agents. Really handy for those QA managers out there. Now, one thing that I always recommend with our filters is find some good, unique combos that can unsurface some really good learning moments. And one of those combinations that I love is the sentiment filter, where the customer was negative, followed by what the CSAT score did that customer leave. And in this case, I'm looking at positive CSAT scores. So this now is going to uncover conversations where the customer was a bit upset during the conversation. However, at the end, they rated it good, which means that there's probably a very good support interaction there that can be really useful to show to other agents in the team and to basically build some trainings around how to handle these type of conversations. And again, you could do the opposite in a way where you're actually looking at the negative CSAT responses. So the customer was a bit upset and they ended up publicly being upset by leaving a CSAT rating. Again, good learning moments can be found with these filter combinations. And on top of that, of the Klaus AI filters and our just default filters, we also bring in some custom field values that you have in your help desk. So if you have a strong tagging game in your help desk, if you've already got some pretty heavy processes there, you can then utilize those custom field values in Klaus to find the right tickets. So as an example here, we have a industry custom field, and we have all of the different industries that we label in our help desk. If I wanted to maybe do a one-off exercise of reviewing particular tickets from a particular industry, or if I just wanted to kind of analyze what is the quality of our support for SaaS companies compared to food delivery companies, you can do that. So if you have a strong tagging game in your help desk, making use of them in Klaus, not only in the filters, but in the dashboards as well, it can be a really great extra layer when it comes to analyzing your conversation reviews. So I'm going to now just open up one of the filters I've made, which is that the solution was not found. And you'll notice here that all of my auto QA categories have been graded for me. I'm going to switch to my main scorecard. So my main scorecard has a mix of auto QA and manual categories. because of course there's some categories that the AI isn't going to be able to know. It's not going to know if it followed internal processes, for example. So it's good to mix manual with auto categories to help you perform your reviews faster and more consistently. Now, auto QA, you do actually have the option to change if you don't agree with how auto QA has scored. That is all possible as well. But otherwise, you go ahead and you fill in the blank categories, you leave your comment, and you submit the review. Very, very simple stuff. So we've seen ourselves now finding the perfect conversations to review based on the filters. But that's quite a manual process, and I don't want to be going and digging in every time I want to review a conversation to go through this kind of hassle of discovering the ticket. And that is where our assignments feature, which I'm sure most of you are using. If not, start using it. It's going to change your life. You can see here, I have actually 4 different auto assignments running at once. So I like to use assignments for everything. Even if I was doing a one-off exercise of reviewing just SaaS companies, I could create an assignment to assign me those conversations, saving me from making these manual filters. You'll see I've got a specific assignment for my onboarders because I want to make sure I'm assessing all of my onboarding tickets. I've got a dedicated spotlight assignment, meaning that every week it's going to send me all of these spotlight cases that Klaus AI has detected. And I've got one for my regular weekly reviews as well. I really do recommend creating separate assignments for different unique things that you're trying to achieve with Klaus. Within the assignments feature, I also really like to promote the use of Klaus's groups. Now, if you're not aware of this, you can use the groups feature in Klaus to basically create teams with the users you have within Klaus. These groups are now available to use to filter your dashboards and, of course, to use in your assignments. So I've created my onboarders group here for my newest agents. And now when I go back to my assignments page, I can actually utilize the groups function. Instead of having to individually select the 4 onboarders from my reviewees list, what I can do instead is just click and select onboarders. And you can really make use of these groups in the assignments function for both reviewers and reviewees. That also is quite a nice time-saving tip for you there. All right. Now, what we're going to do is we're now going to look at the goal, which is another question we get quite often, and that is, how many conversations should we review weekly or monthly? And there is no perfect answer. Of course, it's nice to try to review 10 or +% of your total volume. However, it really more comes down to the quality of ticket you're reviewing and how consistently you can actually hit that target each week. The most important thing is that your agents get used to receiving regular feedback each week or each month or every 2 weeks, whatever your cadence is. Once you start setting goals that are too high and your reviewers can't reach them, and then there's 1 week half the amount of reviews compared to the other, things start to get a bit shaky and start falling apart. So it's really ideal to set a goal that is achievable and consistent for your team. One thing I wanted to point out on our goals page, though, is this little setting here that I don't think too many people are too aware of or what it does. This lets you choose how many reviews of the same agent do you want to receive in a row when you're completing your assignment. So for example, if we were going to be doing 5 conversations per agent, I could select this to also be 5, meaning that when I open my assignment, I'm going to get the same agent's conversations 5 times in a row. And why that is useful is that if I am reviewing, let's say 10 agents, 5 tickets each, it really helps me analyze and spot trends of a specific agent if I assess 5 of their tickets in a row. If I'm getting a different agent each time, it's hard to actually visualize or compute the patterns that a single agent may be performing. So by using this function here to choose to bring as many of the same agent in a row can really help you identify trends when you're making your reviews. And finally, in the conditions, just to point out here, that our auto QA categories are also available in assignments. So you can assign all of those solution tickets to yourself in an assignment. But also one more I wanted to share with you in the filters is the review status option. So here we can make sure that the conversations that are being assigned to your reviewers are not ones that have already got a review. So this can be a very nice addition to any assignment filter, just to ensure that your reviewers are getting unique tickets to review and you're not ending up reviewing the same tickets all together. So we'll head back to our assignments view now, and we can also see in our weekly reviews, we can also see again that our auto QA categories have done the magic for us, and we just need to go in and complete the review with the manual categories and submit it. So we've now seen two ways to submit reviews. One is from our Conversations tab after filtering for the right convo, and another is within the Assignments tab, which makes all of that automatic for you. There's actually a third way that we can review in Klaus, and I should also say outside of Klaus. And we're going to pass back to Diogo for the next tip of the day.
Thank you, Riley. Yeah, I really like to do those kind of reviews, no pun intended, of ways to submit reviews in Klaus, because of course the classic filters, they are always there for us. We also have insights, which are the visual filters, and then assignments are the way to save time really with the selection of conversations. But we have yet another way, as Riley said, and it's by reviewing with the browser extension. So I have here my assignments open, same as Riley has. And as you can see here, I have already installed my browser extension to my browser. If I click here, what the browser extension is going to do is going to navigate to my assignments, and then it takes me back to the help desk page where I have that ticket. Why should I use the browser extension? It can be by this way that I just showed. Maybe I like to navigate in my help desk. Maybe there are certain details about this conversation that I can only see in my help desk, and that shouldn't prevent you from completing your reviews. You can do that in a very easy way. I look here at my scorecard, one I'm already familiar with. I just complete here with the missing categories. I can leave my comment to Riley, and then I submit my review, and I go to the next conversation. Then Klaus is going to take you to the next intercom page where the other conversation selected by assignments is, and I continue my assignment. As easy as this. This is not the only thing you can do with the extension. There's another very nice use case for that, and that is reviewing pages or domains really where they are not connected with Klaus, but I still need to review certain tickets or content or interactions and bring those to Klaus. I'm going to switch here to a place not connected with our tool. This is Quality Tribe. It's actually our own community where people can exchange best practices and ask questions and connect with other professionals, all those things. I see here an interaction between one of our members, Richard, and Trin. And if I want to review Trin for any reason, as I can see here, we have a unique URL. All I need to do is to open the extension. This is the first time I'm reviewing a conversation from this external source. I connect it, and then I can now send this review to Trin or whoever is the agent that I'm checking. I complete this review whatever way I want. And now this review is in Klaus. Now let's go back to Klaus and I'll show you how it looks like. And then that's the perfect segue to the next part of the tool I want to show, the Activities tab. So if I look here at the received reviews or given reviews, these are the two ways I can look at reviews in Klaus. And also every time I open a notification via email or via Slack, this is the place where Klaus is going to take me, the activities. I've just given a review to Riley, so I can see now this review here. And now we are looking at the use case with the extension. I don't see the content itself of that interaction. I just see here the URL for reference. So this is on top of Intercom, Zendesk, Salesforce, whatever help desk that you're using. This is how you can also use the extension. But back here to the activity. there's three main parts of the activity tab. We have the received reviews, usually used by the agents, the given reviews, usually by the reviewers. Of course, sometimes we have overlap, so there's people who do both. They both get reviews and they also give reviews. But when you are navigating here, let's pretend I am an agent. I'm looking at the reviews I received from my team lead, Riley. I see here the results. And there's something here that I'm not quite sure if I agree for whatever reason, according to our guidelines, according to what I thought was expected of me as an agent in my company. So one thing you can do is to dispute this review back to your reviewer, or you can also escalate it to someone above them. So I dispute this review here. It's going to go to Riley. I don't think this part here with the internal processes, according to the description, is a thumbs down. I think I actually did it right. So I'm going to suggest this change. And it's mandatory to leave a comment so the person who receives the dispute can evaluate it. I think XYZ. And then I'll hit send. Now it's going to show a new banner here called Dispute Open. And then depending on who you are in the team, if you are a lead, if you are a manager or an admin, you can look at the disputes and then they can be either accepted or rejected. Those were the things I wanted to show here in my pro tips part. Back now to Riley to talk a little bit about reportings and dashboard.
Thanks, Diogo. So we have now made some reviews and now we've got some results to analyze in our dashboard. So there's a few things I wanted to point out when it comes to the Klaus dashboard that maybe you're not quite aware of and to help make the most out of it. The first one is this view settings up the top here. This lets you actually toggle on and off certain dashboard cards. If there's some you aren't using, it might be worth turning them off so it's not constructing your view. Also worth checking maybe some of these have been disabled without you knowing and you're not actually seeing all of the dashboard cards that are available. So do have a review of the view settings up here. And further to that, in the same light, we actually have our filters up the top. But this little panel here is more filters, and these ones are quite useful. So don't forget about them, essentially. Here, what you can see is you can actually filter your dashboard for a particular individual scorecard, for example, and also tags, so your help desk tags. Like I mentioned earlier, if you have a strong tagging game, you can actually then use these help desk tags to analyze your quality data. So if you've got it by industry or maybe by size of customer, or if it's trial user compared to paying user, you can actually check what is the quality of your support for those types of conversations and for those values. It can be a really nice addition to your analysis of your quality data. Apart from the filters and the settings, the next thing I wanted to talk about is the pass rate. So the pass rate is by default set at 80%, and then it's going to show you what percentage of your reviews were scored 80% or above, and in our case, 65% of them were passable. Now, the baseline, you can actually change that score for you. Not a lot of people know this, but you can reach out to our customer support and you can request that we adjust the baseline score for your company. Maybe you want it higher. You might be a bit more ambitious and you want 90% as your baseline. Or maybe you've got quite a strict and harsh scorecard, so you want to lower the actual baseline score. We can do that. So feel free to reach out to our support if you want to make adjustments to the pass rate. The next thing is my favorite part of the dashboard, which is our scores by category dashboard. And just to point out that it is possible to sort by columns here, making it really simple to find out where the problem areas are for your team. In this case, as we know, internal processes wasn't doing so well. I can now sort by this column and I can really find out who is struggling the most in this category. And in this case, Emiliano is really having a rough time. So I actually really need to have a training with him. And another little tip with our dashboard cards is they are pinnable, meaning that I can actually save this dashboard card. I can pin it underneath Emiliano. He's not going to see this yet unless I tag him to have a discussion. Otherwise, this dashboard card is going to be stored in my own private folder for pins. And we're going to take a look at pins a little bit later in the webinar to see why that is useful, but we'll just pin that one for now. Every dashboard card is pinnable, meaning that you can access it again at a later date, discuss it with a colleague, bring it to a one-on-one session. Really, really useful function of our dashboards. So I'm going to switch over now to the given dashboard. This was our received. The given dashboard is just as useful. This is analyzing the grades that your reviewers have given. And first thing that comes to the given dashboard that's new is the review time. We can now track, on average, how long does it take your reviewers to leave a review. And obviously, if you check on your team, if one of your reviewers is completing their reviews in 10 seconds or 30 seconds, when the average is normally 2 minutes, might be worth pulling them aside and having a talk to and understanding how they're completing their reviews so quickly. And that actually brings me to the next point of the given dashboard, is this is kind of the first step in calibration between your reviewers. It gives you a bit of an oversight into how are your reviewers scoring each category. And you can kind of get a first glimpse that if your reviewers aren't quite aligned with the scores they're giving, maybe there is a misalignment with the understanding of what these categories mean, and it can be a good indication for a calibration session. In our case, we're not actually too bad off. Overall, the average is only a 4% difference. However, if you did notice big disparities between categories between your reviewers, it's generally a sign that you need to calibrate. And speaking of calibrations, it is time to pass back to Diogo for the next tip of the day.
Thank you, Riley. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about calibration. We were now navigating already in the dashboard and looking at the results, but before that, how do we set up calibrations? The calibration tab exists here under the conversation tabs. So first we have the insights, of course, the visual filters, and then some others like public and private. But for calibrations, we go here. Okay, we have a calibration session already created. Usually the way that I recommend using calibration sessions is you can do either bi-weekly or monthly. You select a sample of conversations, maybe 5 to 10, depending on how much time available your team has. You bring those conversations here to the calibration session, and then under settings, you can choose if you want reviewers to see other people's reviews before they submit their own or not. I usually suggest the option not to see them to avoid bias. And just so you know, this is a separate environment. It doesn't affect your IQS scores, and agents don't have access to it. Now, looking here at one of the conversations, this one, me and Riley, we have already calibrated that. We look here, we still had pretty different scores, but that shows something. We can have a dedicated time, as I said, twice a month or once a month to talk about these conversations we calibrated, see why the scores were different. And then after we agree that one or another score was the official one, we can always go here. In this case, Riley had the most accurate one, and we can mark it as the baseline review. Another pro tip is have a third person. Maybe the results will be mixed. So certain categories, I got them right. Certain categories, Riley did. Maybe Trin can come here. She submits a third to represent the official score that we should have got to this person. And then later, after we mark one as the baseline review, we can also see that reflected in the dashboard. Just go here to the dashboard options, calibration, and then here you will see one marked as the baseline review. That was what I wanted to show about calibration. Back to Riley now to talk about coaching sessions.
Thanks, Diogo. Yes, so we have now kind of completed a pretty decent feedback circuit where we've got our reviews, we've created them, we've gone to the dashboard, and we've now seen some results. It's now time to put those results into action by using some of our coaching features. So our coaching features currently has 3 individual features combined. We've got our quizzes, our pins, and our sessions. I'm going to quickly talk a little bit about all of them. So first of all, our quizzes. If you didn't know, you can actually create multiple choice quizzes inside of Klaus. And you can track, obviously, the results that your agents have performed on the quizzes themselves. These can be really useful for post-training session with the wider team, you can create a little multiple choice quiz in Klaus, assess it, and measure the knowledge retention from your trainings. How effective were your training sessions for your agents? Really useful, supports images, and yeah, it's something that if you haven't used them yet, give them a go. It can be quite a useful feature. The next thing is our pins, which I talked about before in the dashboard view, and I had pinned a dashboard card, which is it's now here. So what's really cool about the pins is right now, only I can see this pin. It's just my own in my own set of folders. However, I can actually tag other Klaus users in it and invite them for a discussion. By adding them, I can now invite, and now Diogo would actually have access to this pin as well. And we can actually have a little private chat about this particular item in Klaus. Really useful for talking to other reviewers. Maybe you're unsure how to grade a certain card. Maybe there's a really positive case that you want to share with the wider team. Maybe there's a really bad example of how to do support that you want to use for training purposes as well. The pins can be really, really useful. One thing that the pins also work well with is our third feature in our coaching section, and that is the sessions feature. So our sessions feature is a way to host and document and store historically all of the one-to-one sessions you have between manager and agent, QA specialist and agent, or even between your review team themselves. Your QA managers can host one-on-ones with their review team, and it's really, really useful. Once you start using the one-on-one session feature here, you'll quickly realize how useful it is, particularly for the historical data side of it. So we're going to quickly look at what these look like. Obviously, you've got all of your agents' results for the time period given on the right-hand side. You've got written feedback that they have received from their reviews, and of course, the pins that I was discussing earlier. And what's cool about the pins is I can find the pins and I can add them specifically to the one-on-one session, in this case, August. It's now here. And by adding that pin here, it's now given Emiliano also visibility of the pin. So when we're in the one-on-one discussion, we can both click on it, take it to the same dashboard card, and have a discussion around that same item in Klaus. So again, really useful for one-on-one sessions so that you're both on the same page and you know exactly what you're talking about when you're delivering it. Not only that, you've got action items you can assign, and the beauty of our sessions is, as I mentioned, it groups your past sessions. So any session you have with the same agent, all of the historical data will be visible on this page. You can quickly go back. You can see what is the item they haven't achieved. In this case, he hasn't completed the internal processes training, which, as we saw from the dashboard, is a big problem. He really needs to complete that training because that is where he's suffering the most. Yeah, pins and sessions and coaching just all combined, it is a game changer. If you are one to hold regular one-on-one sessions with your agents, I really recommend using Klaus for them, purely just for the trackable purposes. And on top of that, if you are starting to use them, we have a little insights view here, which logs when did you host the training session, and then how has the agent scores been since. So you can kind of track the effectiveness of your one-on-one sessions. Are your agents actually improving as you deliver more and more sessions? One final thing, sessions are generally a private thing between the coach and the coachee. However, you can share the session with maybe the manager of the department very easily. So in this case, I've shared my session with Diogo, so he can actually come in here and he can see what has taken place, what the action items are, and what was discussed. So if you need that extra layer of visibility of your coaching sessions, you can also do that here, which is very, very useful. All right, that is the end of our coaching sessions. Now we're going to head back to Diogo for our final tip of the day. Yeah, take it away, Diogo.
Thank you, Riley. Yeah, I really like the coaching part because it really completes the arc from the work happens in the help desk. We get the conversations, then we review them. With the results, we do something about it together with the agents. Very, very nice. All right. There's one final thing I want to show you. And then after that, I think we can wrap it up. I know we just hit the 45-minute mark. I'll need a couple of extra minutes. If anyone has a hard stop, I apologize, but to make you a little more chill about it, you're gonna get the recording, quick reminder, so don't worry. yeah, I want to show to you a little bit about the CSAT surveys that are not just for CSAT, but now you also have the option for customer effort score and even a way to mix those two with custom surveys. So this lives here under the account settings. Historically, we have heard from customers that depending on where they were doing their CSAT surveys, the settings were not enough. The ability to personalize was missing one or another thing. So we tried to tackle that. With our CSAT surveys, you have a lot of room for making it look like yours, starting with visual identity, logo, colors, and whatnot. Following by content, you can choose here different questions. With the custom one, you can create your own questions. You can also activate our AI Assist, which is going to give the customer a summary of the conversation and probably help you with reply rates because they will remember what was discussed in the interaction. Delivery options, depending on what help desk you're using. There's a list here with different things. And if you are by any chance an intercom user, we can embed it, these CSAT surveys in your chat. If you are a Zendesk user, you can embed it in your emails. And then finally, languages. There's a very long list here of languages going from English to all these other ones here you can see. Maybe you have different markets that you are covering. Maybe you have different brands or different products that you are covering. All these things are possible with our survey. If you want to check it out, surveys are available in every plane of Klaus, up to a certain number of replies. And after that, charges apply. You can check everything in the subscription settings page. That was it for today. Thank you everyone for joining. But before we leave, there's just a couple of links and pages I want to show you and share with you. First of all, a little shout out to our chat team in support. If you have any questions, thoughts, anything, please let us know. The team is there to help you. Second thing, we have here also our knowledge base. So let me switch to that. It's full of articles, videos, pro tips. We usually share these recordings there as well. So you can see previous webinars we did with other topics and a lot of things to learn from here. And finally, I also recommend checking, if you haven't checked yet, our Klaus courses. That was me and that was Riley. We both participate. So this is a good way of reviewing your process or just trying to create one. And it's split between different lessons from who should be doing conversations, how many, what categories and rating scales, calibration sessions as well. So it covers a good number of things related to QA. Um, Finally, if you are interested in the outer QA categories and testing them out, there is a waiting list available, and we're going to kick off the general trials very soon. So you're going to get the link in the chat right now, and you can click, put yourself in the waiting list, and we're going to be in touch with you very soon with exciting news about that feature. Thank you very much again. Sorry to rob 5 extra minutes from your day, but I hope this was a useful session. Cheers, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.